Hello everyone, my name is Owain on the Thomas Bros channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the Demon Slayer Infinity Castle movie. So, I managed to go see this a couple days ago on the 13th, so the day after it released officially in the UK, and, well, it was a movie. I can definitely say that. I don't really have a smooth way to transition into this, so I'm not going to. Obviously, spoilers for the Demon Slayer Infinity Castle, both this movie and just the entire arc in general. So, three, two, one, upper three. Okay, so the first scene, you've got Guillaume talking, like a flashback with Guillaume talking to the Master about the whole plan that the Master's gonna sacrifice himself, boom, and then Guillaume is gonna have to be the one that beheads Muzan. And that's just like a nice catch up to sort of remind you where we're at. And then right after that, it just drops you straight into it, where the show ended off, where Tanjiro's falling down through the Infinity Castle. You've got Lady Tamayo, who's injecting poison into Muzan, to effect and also not to effect, because obviously you've got later on in the movie, Muzan's in like one massive cocoon with her, and he's distributing the poison she's injecting into him to all the other demons throughout the Infinity Castle. So, was that really? I mean, I don't exactly know what the poison's meant to do. I assume it's just meant to weaken him, but yeah. Either way, so Tanjiro's falling down and he tries to save himself before he hits the floor by grabbing onto a ledge, which obviously doesn't work. And just before he's about to splat on the floor, Giyu saves him, just in time, obviously. And it's then it starts to form a plan, be like, okay, we have to go meet up with all the other Hashira and all the other Demon Slayers, and then go after Muzan and kill him while he's still weak, which is obviously the main plan. And then they have the little funny bit there where they're walking, be like, we have to be really sneaky, and Tanjiro's like, oh, okay, and then you've got like the really simplified animation for them, which has been a staple for Demon Slayer's humours, having really low quality, really just simplified animation at points for it. But then after that, if I remember correctly, is the fight between Doma and Shinobu. And, God, I felt bad for Shinobu during that entire fight, because I don't like to say this, because obviously they're the Hashira, they are the strongest out of all the Demon Slayers, but Shinobu is the weakest Hashira, and she got paired up to fight Upper 2. Like, that's just not fair at that point. But yeah, she fights Doma, and when she walks in, he's snacking on, a couple of women, literally eating them alive, which, classic Doma, right? Anyway, and then you get to see Doma's backstory, which is very weird. Like, he's an atheist with a god complex, is how I would put it, or a child with a god complex, because he was born with like these freaky rainbow eyes, and so then his parents and everyone started to think, oh, he's got like rainbow eyes, that must mean that he's a god or can speak to God and stuff. So then everybody started worshipping him, being like, oh, when I die, will you take me to heaven and stuff. And Doma was just like, there is no heaven. There's no heaven for anybody. When you die, that's it. You're gone. But then Doma thought, oh, hey, here's a good idea. I will eat people alive, so then they get taken to my heaven, and they have the privilege of living on inside of me. Which, I don't really know where that logic stemmed from, but, I mean, more power to him, I guess. And that's the thing about him. Well, that's not the thing about him, but the way I see Doma, he's just a child that's been given all this absurd amount of power, because the fight that he had with Shinobu, he viewed it as just one massive game. He wasn't even trying to fight against Shinobu. He was holding back because obviously Shinobu knew that by herself she stood no chance against him. That's why she had the poisonous blade, so that every time she hit him, there would be a new kind of poison injected into him. But the thing was, Doma adapted and healed himself from the poison faster than it could take effect. And you've just got this, I want to say back and forth fight, but that can't really be said, because if it's a back and forth, it means that one side is winning and the other side's losing. But Shinobu was just losing throughout that entire fight, because, I mean, to be fair, she managed to hold her own against Doma, but even Doma holding back, not even trying, still killed her. He didn't take the fight seriously at all, and in the end, obviously, he manages to kill Shinobu, and he even mocks her for it, as he's, like, breaking her back and eating her and absorbing her into him. He's, like, crying out of just pity for her, being like, oh, you poor thing, you must have been you're so extremely weak and so extremely small. You must have been so, like, ungodly, like, godlike luck to make it this far, because you're just so pitifully weak. And it's like, oh my god, Doma, she already knows that, because just before you started eating her, she had this whole thing where, like you said, after all, you're so small and so weak, and she's like, why did I never grow? Why did I never get taller? Why are my hands so small? And all that, and that just, like, really sad moment where she was just like, I never did get to grow taller and have longer limbs, because if you have longer limbs, you have further reach to, like, kill demons and stuff. And it's just like, that was sad. I mean, granted, I didn't cry at Shinobu's death like I did at Kaz's backstory, but it was still sad. And for Doma to just pity her and make fun of her like that, and just mock her the way that he did as he was killing her, was just a really dick move. But I love Doma for that. He's such an arsehole, and I just can't hate him for that, because he's just, well, that's the point of his character. Same with, I can't exactly remember his name, but, Kaigaku, or something, Zenatsu's rival. The whole point of his character was just to be someone that you love to hate. But I just can't bring myself to hate Doma. But what I can bring myself to do is say that he's an absolute arsehole. That I can say that easily, because that was just, like, another level of just being an absolute jerk. But yeah, and then as he's eating her, you've got Kanao, I think was her name. Kanao walks in to see her older sister being eaten alive and being absorbed into him. And he's like, oh, can you stop for a moment? I'm trying to enjoy my meal. And it's like, I honestly don't know what, because obviously the second movie is going to continue with the fight between Kanao and, with now the fight between Kanao and Doma, and it's just like, what's Kanao gonna do? Shinobu was one-shot, essentially, was basically one-shotted by Doma, and he was holding back, and Kanao isn't even a Hashira. So, I genuinely don't know what she's gonna do against Doma. If Doma managed to one-shot a Hashira like that, what chance does Kanao have? But, yeah, so I love Doma, and that fight scene between Doma and Shinobu was very well animated. It was just, well, extremely short, which is that's exactly what it was, and it's also the height of Shinobu. No, that was too far. But then after the fight with Shinobu and Doma is the fight with Kaigaku and Zenitsu, because Zenitsu obviously at the end of the show went from like this lovable, haha, funny, goofball character to being really stoic and depressed, I guess. And we learn in this movie it's because his rival and, like, not mentor, but, his rival and his comrade, Kaigaku, Kaigaku and Zenitsu trained under the same master who was a former Hashira, the thunder-breathing Hashira, and it turns out that Kaigaku chose to become a demon, Upper 6 more specifically, replacing Daki and Gyutaro after their death at the hands of Uzui and Tanjiro. And because after finding that out, Zenitsu's master killed himself. He stabbed himself and bled out in the most painful way possible because he died alone in the cold without anybody there to basically make it quick and kill him there. So he just bled out on the floor. And that's why Zenitsu was so depressed, because he found out that his master had killed himself because of Kaigaku turning into a demon. And when Zenitsu confronts Kaigaku about this, and you've got that whole thing where he's like, "Long time no see, Zenitsu," you can just tell what this man was. Before, I mean, we already knew that Kaigaku was a disgusting person before he became a demon, because he treated Zenitsu like dirt in the previous seasons, and he ratted out Guillaume's entire family to that demon so they all got killed so that he could basically be spared. And yeah, it's just... But the thing was, obviously the whole fan base hates this guy, and for good reason. He is the catalyst for everything that went wrong in two characters' backstories. But after seeing him in that movie, I can't really hate him, because I actually thought he was a really, really good villain. I thought he sounded cool, he had a really cool design, and as I said before, when I was talking about the whole fight with Shinobu and Doma, the whole point of his character is just to be an asshole and to be the polar opposite of what Zenitsu is. And I can't really fault him for that. That's the whole point of his character. So they did a very good job at making him, he's the character that you love to hate. And that's exactly what they made him do. And I love him. Loving him is a strong word, because I don't love him, but I do like him. I like him as a character, but, I love Takaza, but no. But I did like Kaigaku in there, and I really liked his sort of ideology, where he thought, as long as it doesn't matter whether you have to kneel down in front of someone or do something bad, for as long as you are alive, you can still win. And his whole ego that he had, because he thought that he alone should be the one that inherited thunder breathing, and so the fact that he had to share it with Zenitsu, he didn't like that, because he thought Zenitsu was inferior to him, and he thought that that was a massive insult to him. Even though Zenitsu could only master the first form of thunder breathing, which is the base for all other thunder breathing styles, and Kaigaku could master all other thunder breathing techniques aside from the first one, which, is a skill issue on both of their parts. But Kaigaku was handed the worst hand with that skill issue, because he was missing out on the literal essential part of thunder breathing. So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about him, because I feel like I've said everything about him. He has a cool design, cool voice, cool ideology, and he's just a cool character all around. An asshole, but that's what makes him cool, because that's the whole point of his character. And that part where Zenitsu explains to him that because he became a demon, their master killed himself, and Kaigaku's just like, I couldn't care less if that old man died. He paired me up with someone like you. He deserved to die for that. And just like, yeah, that was just, no, and Zenitsu had every right to go out and just fight him. And that fight between Zenitsu and Kaigaku was amazing. I'd say it's one of the most well-animated fights in all of Demon Slayer. I think it's up there with... I was about to say it's up there with the fight between Tenya and... I can't pronounce his first name right, but I would have said it's up there with Uzui's fight with Gyutaro. But I think there's another fight in that movie, in this movie, that is better than all other fights aside from that one, because the Gyutaro and Uzui fight was just incredible. But yeah, Kaigaku's fight with Zenitsu was absolutely amazing, and Kaigaku even had his own blood demon art of that every time he hit Zenitsu, he got more injured, like the cracks would spread across his body and kill him off more and more and more. But at the end of the day, despite how powerful Kaigaku is, and especially since he was a fairly new demon, he was lastminute.com, because that was it. He got his blood from Upper One, Kokushibo, and, well, he existed purely just as an extra hand to have for the final battle, just as a temporary fix for the Upper Six slot, because obviously he was going to die no matter what, so he was just a temporary fix. And at the end of the day, he never mastered the first form of thunder breathing, the basis for all others, while Zenitsu perfected it and even managed to make his own style of thunder breathing that he used to just one-shot him. Immediately cuts off his head, decapitates him. Granted, it was a while before he managed to do that, because Zenitsu was literally on his last ounce of life, but he did manage to do it, and he decapitated Kaigaku, and obviously they both fall, and they're falling down the shaft, and Kaigaku's like, wait, he'll die from this fall as well. At least I'll be taking him with me. And then, I can't remember his name, but Lady Tamayo's assistant goes down and he saves Zenitsu, and he even says to Kaigaku's head as it's falling down and, like, withering away, and he's like, oh, isn't it a pitiful, sad death to die alone with no one around you? Which is exactly what Kaigaku said about his master's death. So I thought that was quite cool, how he turns that against him. But yeah, Zenitsu's fight with Kaigaku was absolutely amazing, and the way that he one-shots him at the end was beautiful. Though, Lady Tamayo's assistant does make a good point. Again, Kaigaku was very new, and because he'd only just become a demon, it was a mixture of two things. He'd only just become a demon, so he hadn't mastered his blood demon art or any of his other powers yet, and, well, he's very arrogant and egotistical, and so he was very overconfident going into this fight. So, if he had a year's more of practice and training, he would have defeated Zenitsu. I wouldn't have gone as far to say as he would have demolished him, because that breathing technique Zenitsu used, the one that he made, did one-shot him. So I wouldn't say that Kaigaku would have demolished him if he had a year's more of experience, but Kaigaku would have won. But luckily, it didn't come down to that, because Kaigaku is extremely arrogant, possibly more so than Muzan and Dakia, and because he hadn't mastered his blood demon art yet, he was very, very weak. And in the end, he dies. Zenitsu lives. Hooray! And, well, I mean, Zenitsu's out of commission for the rest of that movie, and he needs to be healed up. But, he's still alive, and you even get that funny bit where, I can't remember what his name is, but the Demon Slayer that somehow has managed to survive all of this is, having that back and forth with Tamayo's assistant, being oh, how dare you, he has feelings as well, right? And then he uses water breathing to cut that demon's head off, and, all of his screaming alerted that demon. He's just a really funny character. And then we're back to Tanjiro and Giyu. Yeah, back to Tanjiro and Giyu. They're still running around the Infinity Castle. They have been since the beginning of the movie. Haven't been doing it as long as Genya had. Genya has been running around, at the beginning of the movie, he's running around the Infinity Castle. At the end of the movie, he's still running around the Infinity Castle. Genya, got all of, 5 seconds of screen time. But, in any case, they're running around the Infinity Castle trying to find the other Demon Slayers. And then his theme plays. Akaza just, his theme starts to play, and it's a badass theme, by the way. And he breaks through the ceiling, and he just starts, going apeshit. He just starts throwing hands. He recognises Tanjiro from the Mugen Train arc, and he just starts fighting Tanjiro and Giyu. It's an amazing fight. The Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza fight is really good. I would say it's up there with Uzui versus Gyutaro fight in the Entertainment District. It's just amazing. And then, Akaza just throws Giyu through a wall, and, Giyu's just knocked out. And he keeps having this fight with Tanjiro, and they get thrown somewhere. Honestly, the fight is too amazing to keep track of. And so I can't exactly remember how they get from one side to the other, but they get there. And then Tanjiro says something. God, I can't actually remember, because it's 2.5 hours of information my brain's had to process, so I'm not going to remember everything. But Tanjiro says something, and that gives him, by him I mean Akaza, a flashback to his mentor. And we find out, obviously throughout this movie, we're going to find out Akaza's backstory and all this. And I really like, because he says it later on in the movie, he hates Tanjiro. He specifically hates Tanjiro a lot because of how much he reminds him of his master, subconsciously speaking. And he doesn't like that. But Akaza sort of has a moment of, he pauses and obviously turns around and tries punching the air. And then Giyu runs straight in. And a lot of people have mentioned this, and I find it really funny. He gets his Demon Slayer mark here. And I was like, what the hell? Because I didn't think that he would get that until, the second movie or something like that. So, but a lot of people, including myself, find it really funny. All the other characters, Morichiro, Tanjiro, I think Mitsuri, have gotten all of their marks from some sort of epiphany or a tragic backstory. But Giyu got his mark because Akaza threw his back out, and he didn't like that. And I find that really funny. That it's nothing, it's no deeper meaning for that, though I think we've already explored the majority of Giyu's past trauma, so I guess they couldn't really pull from that pool any longer. But, it's still just a funny way of the fact of how he got that mark. And then him and Akaza just start fighting all across the Infinity Castle. They're bringing down all, the pillars and stuff raised up. Tanjiro can barely keep her. It's an amazing fight. It's I was going to say it's a really, an anime fight. But it's of course it's an anime fight. It's literally an anime movie. And they eventually get into this building, and they're having their big back and forth. And Tanjiro's trying to figure out how he can beat Akaza, and he remembers the whole fighting spirit thing. It's something I'm not even entirely sure of, but I think from what I understood in the movie, it's that Tanjiro heightens his senses or something. He gets rid of his killing intent, because it was a whole thing that he had a conversation with Inosuke about Inosuke can sense people's killing intent. I think it was that his senses are so heightened that he can feel even the intentions of people, and if their fighting spirit, their killing intent. So Tanjiro manages to remove his killing intent and manages to see into like the transparent world where he can what was it? Where he can basically like see and feel muscles in his body, and he's basically just gets to a mindset where he, mentally speaking, has nothing. He has no intentions. He has no intentions to kill a Akaza, no intentions to fight Akaza, at least nothing that actually appears in his mind and his soul, so Akaza can't pick up on it. So it's a very weird side of it, and because something that wasn't really explained very well, at least in the time that I got to process it, so I'm not entirely sure how it works. So if anyone knows how the whole transparent killing / fighting spirit thing works, then can you please tell me in the comments, because I don't really know how that whole thing works. But from what I understand, it's just that he heightens his senses and gets rid of his killing intent, fighting spirit. But we do get to see some of Tanjiro's dad. Tanjiro's dad looked really cool. He beheaded that bear. He like jumped up, cut apart the neck, jumped back down, cut the other part of the neck, just decapitated that bear immediately without having the fighting spirit, killing intent thing. That was really cool. So I actually quite like Tanjiro's dad. I didn't have like a big opinion on him before. Why would I? We never really saw him. But I've got to say now, I quite like Tanjiro's dad. Though I don't think he's exactly prime Yoriichi, even though he does kind of look like him. But, you know, I still think that he's pretty cool. And it's Tanjiro removing his killing intent or his fighting spirit, whatever, that ultimately gets him to behead Akaza. Because Akaza's having this fight with Giyu and stuff, and he actually manages to beat Giyu, because he gets him on the floor, like Giyu's almost dead, and he's like, become a demon, yada yada yada, basically the same stuff that he said to Rengoku. And Tanjiro manages, just as Tanjiro's about to behead Akaza, he says, Akaza, get ready to be decapitated, and that alerts Akaza. And the person next to me in the theatre, who was watching this, just went like this. And honestly, I don't blame her, because, yeah, why would you say that? He's about to get, like, a perfect shot at Akaza, and he just reveals his position. He still manages to decapitate him, because he jumps out the way of his attack, and manages to decapitate him anyway. But it's still a stupid idea that you would do to try and do that to him. But then, just as they think that they've actually managed to beat an upper moon, or whatever, the Akaza starts to regrow his head, or regenerate his head, and I think going back to the Mugen Train arc with Akaza versus Rengoku, obviously Rengoku had Akaza on the ropes. Even when Akaza stopped holding back against him, Rengoku still had him on the ropes. And same with Giyu versus Akaza in this film. Giyu had Akaza on the ropes. But after knowing that Akaza can regenerate his head, meaning that decapitating him is more an inconvenience to him than an actual killing blow, I don't actually see any other way that Rengoku could have won that fight. In fact, I don't see how any other Hashira, aside from someone like Gyome, would have been able to beat Akaza. Because, like Muzan, he can regrow or regenerate his head. That's not really his weak point, unless he chooses to stop regenerating, which he did choose to not regenerate from his head being cut off. But had he chosen not to do that, he would have regrown his head, and he would have just killed Giyu and Tanjiro right then and there. So, with that in mind, I just don't see, like, Rengoku and Giyu, yeah, they can, like, hold off Akaza, they can have him on the ropes and stuff, but to say that Rengoku could have beaten Akaza, I just don't think so, because Rengoku, unless Rengoku managed to keep fighting Akaza until the sun came up, which obviously he didn't, Akaza would just regrow his head every time. And same with basically everyone. I think the only one that would actually be able to kill him the proper way would be Gyome, just because he's that strong. So, yeah, I guess cutting off Akaza, and hell, this rule might even apply to characters like Doma and Kokushibo. So we don't actually know if this is something only Muzan and Akaza have, being able to having their head not be their weak point, or whether it goes for all of the upper three. Because obviously it doesn't apply for the lower, like, 4, 5, and 6, but 3, 2, and 1, that rule might actually apply to the others. But, of course, as Akaza's got his head cut off and he's going off to, like, start regenerating it, you get his wife that shows up, and that's when you get Akaza's backstory. Okay, so Akaza's backstory, I didn't think I would cry at this movie. I didn't think I would actually have some emotional impact, but, well, Akaza's backstory did make me cry. It was just really, really sad. He's just, in his backstory that dated over like a century or 2 centuries ago, you had him as a human who was stealing from like the rich and from royalty to try and pay for the expensive medicine needed to get his dad food and to get him medicine and stuff. And then this happened at least 6 times. He got caught because he had 6 tattoos put around his arm, and he was also whipped and beaten and like left out in like scorching heat and stuff as his punishment every time. And it got to a point where his dad was so filled with shame that his son kept doing this, that his dad hung himself in his own house's doorway when Akaza got back home that day. And then Akaza obviously leaves the town, where he meets his mentor, who actually, in the dub, is voiced by Channing Tatum, the same guy that acted as Deadpool in the Deadpool Wolverine. So that was actually pretty cool. And he fights Akaza as just a regular human and absolutely beats him up, because Akaza's very good at hand-to-hand combat, but his master's just better than him. I mean, and he even says time to be reborn, which is something that's said in this movie before. I can't remember exactly who says it, but I think it's something maybe Akaza says. But he says time to be reborn before he just absolutely wipes the floor with him. And he brings Akaza back to his house, his mansion, to meet his daughter and Akaza's future wife. And she's got an illness. His wife and her mother killed herself because she thought that she wouldn't actually live, and she didn't want to live to see her daughter die. And he just wants Akaza to take care of her, because he runs a dojo from saving like an old man, and because he didn't have any inheritance to his will, he just gave his whole will to this guy. But you had a rival dojo next door that was basically intimidating people out of going there and intimidating everyone to leave, so he didn't get any money to pay for the medicine and stuff. So as he was out there like doing other jobs, he just needed Akaza to look after his daughter. And Akaza's just such a good boy. He takes care of her so so much, like just giving her all the medicine, like making sure she's well kept for and all that, and even offering to take her places and stuff and getting her food and all that. To the point where she cries because she says at one point, "Oh, you need a break. Why don't you go see the fireworks?" And he's just like, "Are you going?" And she's like, "No." And he says, "Well, that's fine. I'll go when you're better, and we can go next year or the year after or the year after that." And well, she just cries because of that. And God, he's so nice. It's really difficult to hate him after that backstory. And eventually he nurses her back to full health, and by this point they're like adults, and she manages to actually go places with him, and they go to the fireworks, and she proposes to him because she explains that her mother killed herself, obviously, as I mentioned before, because she gave up hope and didn't want to see her daughter die. She knew that her father had given up hope on her living, but she survived because of Akaza's offers to, when she got better, to go see the fireworks. And now they're there, and that's where she proposes to him. And he offers that he'll keep her safe. And then she dies. Yeah, the rival dojo didn't like the success that, well, the dojo was getting, since the mentor died, or at least I'm pretty sure he died, and Akaza ran the dojo, and he actually made it into a proper thriving dojo and a proper business, making loads of money and stuff, and the rival dojo didn't like that, so they poisoned the water supply and the food supply to kill off everybody in the dojo, including Akaza's wife. And that was just really, really sad. Because you get so invested. Like, this movie is 2.5 hours long. They spent like half an hour to possibly an hour just on this backstory. So you get really attached. And when you find out, when you like hear that she's died, and then Akaza just loses it. He's lost everything. He's lost all of his students, he's lost his master, he's lost his father, he's lost his wife now, he's lost everything. And he goes to the rival dojo and he kills all 67 people in that dojo with his bare hands alone. Just him against 67 people, and he kills them, disfigures their bodies. You've got like missing limbs, eyes, teeth, all that they weren't able to find. They were just mutilated beyond all repair, and just beyond actually identifying who he killed, because he mutilated all of them. And honestly, good. I've never been one to support like a gruesome sort of thing like that, but you know what? Good Nakaza. They deserved every single moment of it, because, well, they killed his wife. And then when he like goes, because he's like really depressed. In fact, he's suicidal basically. And then Muzan shows up and he's like, I heard that there was a demon around here from like local reports, but I'd never deployed a demon into this town. And then he sees Akaza, and when Akaza's like, I don't know what you're doing, and then he just punches straight through his face. He just punches straight through Akaza's face, and he's like, I'm forming a group of 12 of the most powerful demons. How would you like to be a member? And Akaza's just like, do what you want, I've lost everything. And that's when he loses memories, and he gets power, and he becomes Akaza. And because throughout all this, from his father and all that, he's just been trying to find power to get stronger and defend himself and defend his family. Then he finally found love, and he finally found a place to belong, and he realised that he didn't need that power. He didn't need anybody other than the people that he cared about. And now that he's a demon, he's forgotten all about all the people he loved and all the lessons he taught them, all the lessons his wife had taught him, and just goes back to being the power-hungry person that died when he met his wife and lived when his father died. And it's just really sad, and it explains a lot about him. Akaza only eats men. He doesn't eat women. He won't exactly, he wouldn't fight Doma or stop him from eating women, but he doesn't choose to eat women because subconsciously he doesn't want to because of his wife. And he doesn't like people who are weak because it was weak, cowardly people that used dishonourable methods to kill his wife. That's why he doesn't like weak people. And he doesn't like Tanjiro because he reminds him of his mentor. And it all just makes so much sense. Akaza is obviously nothing like how he was when he was a human, but subconsciously he's still there. He still follows by the memories. Again, not killing women, hating the weak, and even his lust for power being how he was before he met his wife. And he regains all of his memories due in part to Tanjiro reminding him, and he's just like, I've lost this battle. The battle was over as soon as I got decapitated, because that's when he got his memories back. And he says, I have to kill the person who I've grown to hate. And that's when he starts charging up his, ultimate one-shot move that he used to one-shot Rengoku. And you think he's going to use it on Tanjiro and Giyu. And oh yeah, and that was another thing. When Akaza tries to throw, is regrowing his head, and Tanjiro's like, I have to do something, runs to try and decapitate him, but the sword slips out of his grip, and Tanjiro basically was in the mindset of, no matter what happens, you're catching these hands, and he just clenches his fist and punches Akaza, and it's like, fair play, but there's no way you're making out of this. And once he started charging up his ultimate move, and then Tanjiro tackled Giyu out of the range of the attack, and then you think that they're safe, and they turn around, and it turns out Akaza was never attacking them in the first place with that ultimate move. He was attacking himself. Akaza just killed himself because he was so filled with shame and grief for everything that he'd done now that he'd regained his memories, that he just killed himself. And that was really, the shot that you get where they're looking back and you just see Akaza's body with all these holes and stuff in it, was just and then he starts walking away, but his regeneration is kicking in, regenerating him, and he starts ripping himself apart. He's like, no, I don't want to regenerate, I want to die, I have to die, because and then you've got then you had Muzan in the back of his head telling him, you want this power, you want to be stronger than everybody else, then go kill them. And then you just have that shot where he's on the floor, and then you've got his wife holding his head and blocking his ears so he doesn't hear Muzan's voice, and she just and she's welcome home, my love, and all that. And it was really emotional. That's the point where I cried. And Akaza manages to stop himself from regenerating after regaining his memories and just looking up and seeing his wife and all the people that he's lost. And he even says, where I'm going now, so after he dies, where I'm going, it's not going to be where they are. It's where I'm going is hell. It's not going to be heaven where they are. But his wife didn't go to heaven. She stayed behind. She didn't go to the afterlife. She stayed behind and waited for him so that she could go to hell with him, so that she can always be with him. which I think that's what she did. I'm not entirely sure. I just saw that on like a post, on like a YouTube TikTok post, but it was just really sad when he said, "Where I'm going is not where they're going," and then when she's like holding his head and she says, "Welcome home, my love," and then you've just got Akaza's body just withering away and turning to dust. And I mean, yeah, when the ravens come in and they're like spreading across the Infinity Castle the news that, oh, Giyu and Tanjiro have slain Upper Three, and it's like they didn't. Really, Tanjiro and Giyu didn't kill Akaza. Akaza killed himself. If Akaza didn't want to die, he would have regenerated himself. But he didn't want to live on. He wanted to die and he wanted to go and join his wife in the afterlife. Whether that be heaven or hell, he just wanted to join them again. He just wanted to be with them again. So I'm honestly lost for words at Akaza's backstory because just so sad, and I don't think I can put my feelings on it into words because, I mean, he's probably the most well written character in the entirety of Demon Slayer, to be completely honest, at least so far. So, but damn. Rest in peace, Akaza. He was such an amazing character, and I hope he knows that everything that happened wasn't his fault. Everything that happened just wasn't his fault. He has no one to blame for everything that happened than Muzan and all of those people in that other dojo. He's got no one else but them to blame. But Akaza dies, and Giyu and Tanjiro, they're knocked out. Again, Akaza, how this man isn't up at, like, from what I saw of Doma, yeah, Doma's strong, but I don't know, I just think Akaza's probably stronger than Doma. I haven't fully seen what Doma can do, but he just seems stronger so far. Enough to I think that he should be up at 2. Because after being able to regrow his head, and he wiped out, he would have killed Giyu and Tanjiro. Tanjiro, also, I love the fact that Giyu says that by now, Tanjiro is at the same power level as a Hashira. I like that detail because at this point he is, because he's killed 2 upper moons. So, yeah, Tanjiro and Giyu are knocked out. Obviously, they're not dead, but they are like one strong gust of wind, and they might as well be. And the news is being spread across all of the Infinity Castle, and everyone's just like, yay, they've killed Upper 3. Meanwhile, I'm like, no, Akaza. And then you've Kokushibo. Yeah. You've got Kokushibo in like that small section, and he's just like, Akaza's dead. What did you say about becoming more powerful than me? How pitifully weak you are. And then he just like sheaths and unsheaths his sword so fast you can't even see it, and he just cuts up that entire room. He's only in that movie for 1 minute, but the minute that he is in it has convinced me that he's probably going to be a better villain than Muzan is. Granted, I don't think that's really a high bar, considering the fact that Muzan isn't a very interesting villain. But, yeah. What else have I missed? Uzui. Uzui in that movie was cool. He was only in it for 5 seconds. But him and Rengoku's dad were there. Him, Rengoku's dad, and the former Water Hashira that trained Giyu and Tanjiro. It's like all 3 of those Hashira, obviously they're protecting Nezuko from Muzan. Because obviously if Muzan gets his hands on her, he'll become, the strongest character, the strongest. So it's the last line. They are the last line of defense, and the way that Uzui and Rengoku's dad were just sitting there on the on like the porch or whatever, just waiting for Muzan. Like that must be really suspenseful for them. But Yeah, so in the time that Uzui was in the film, he was really, really cool, and I'm really happy to see him again because, well, I would say he is my favorite character, but I think Akaza might have taken that spot. Uh, Although they might be tied, I don't really know. You had Sanemi and Genya and Morichiro. They were just off fighting demons somewhere. I mean, Sanemi hurt Nezuko, so I don't really care about him. And Morichiro and Guillaume, they'll get plenty of screen time in the next movie, probably. The way I see it now, anyone who didn't get screen time in this movie will get the screen time in the next one. So Genya, Morichiro, Guillaume, Sanemi, Mitsuri and Obanai, yeah, that was an amazing pair. I loved how they were fighting people. Oh, and then another thing, all the, demons that were there that weren't upper ranks were confirmed to now have the same power as a lower rank demon, as, a lower moon, which, I mean, I guess, I don't think any of them are on the same level as Ryu, or Emu was his name, the Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't think there's much else to say. The music was phenomenal. The Akaza's love theme was just really emotional, and Akaza's whole backstory was emotional. Really, really sad. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I did cry. The fight scenes were fantastic. They were all on the same level as the Uzui vs. Gyutaru fight. And there is one thing I would have liked to have seen in that movie, and that would have been how Kokushibo reacted to Kaigaku's death, because Kokushibo was the one that made Kaigaku into a demon. So I would have loved to have seen Kokushibo's reaction to the news that Kaigaku died, and to someone that wasn't even a Hashira, no less. I imagine he would have probably just thought something like, damn, that was a waste of time. That was... he was an absolute waste of time. Why didn't I just kill him then? He was just a waste of demon blood. Because, I mean, he was just... As far as an actual person goes, he was a pitiful, pathetic person. And he died a pitiful, pathetic death. Which is quite fitting for his character. So, I love this movie. I would give it a 10 out of 10 easily. It's just really, really good. Again, music fantastic. Animation is gorgeous, which those are two things that are given by this point. And the character writing and the emotion and character writing, and especially for Akaza, is better than all the emotion that's been in all of Demon Slayer so far. And yeah, I don't think there's much left to say. I've talked about basically everything that's happened in the movie. This has been a long review, a really long video, I know that, but it really needed to be this long in order for me to even grasp my thoughts. I've definitely missed a lot of things, and let me know what I've missed down in the comments, because I know that I have definitely missed a lot, and a lot of Easter eggs and references, yada yada yada. And also let me know what you thought of this movie, because I know I thought of it as a absolute masterpiece. And with that being said, guys, I have been Owain on the Thomas Bros channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Ta-da!